We're surrounded by edible wild plants and mushrooms, but not many of us are actually brave enough or knowledgeable enough to go out and just eat food from the fields and the forests. I've been learning about foraging for the past few years, and it's such a great way to spend time. Every walk you go on is like going on a treasure hunt. Anyway, I want to learn more about foraging wild food, so I'm going to drive a little way across the country to meet up with a guy who knows a lot more about foraging than I do. We've nearly arrived at the forager's house. That'll be where he lives. There's a mushroom.
I've always had a really good interest in nature. I love being outside and I love good food. I used to, in one of my former jobs, manage an Italian restaurant, and I've always loved good food, always loved nature. You put the two together and you end up foraging.
As well as having written a book about wild food, Marlowe also runs foraging courses all across the UK. Today I was lucky enough to go for a walk with him, where he was going to teach me about some of the plants and mushrooms that are growing at this time of year.
Mushrooms get a bad rep, but there's some plants that I'll show you today that are much more poisonous than even the most poisonous mushrooms we've got in the country.
We're just packing the car ready to go. Marlowe said he's going to make some soup to take with us. Marlowe made the soup using a mix of dried mushrooms, some fresh garlic flavoured leaves and a little cream. I thought we were going to have to go out and find mushrooms before we got to eat them, but Marlowe has a good supply of dried mushrooms here, so we're making some mushroom soup for the day.
Oh, look at that for judgment.
Oh, wow. Perfect.
I think that was pure luck.
No, that is years of experience. We've arrived at the first spot where we're going to go looking for some food. Plants or mushrooms? I guess we don't know yet. We don't even know if we're going to find anything. So why go to all the effort of foraging food from the wild when you can very easily pick up a huge variety of produce from the local farm shop or supermarket?
We're all, descended from hunter-gatherers, and you get a certain satisfaction out of growing your own food or picking your own food.
Of course, it takes more effort, and most people probably don't have the time to forage food every day, but an hour or two walking at the weekend or after work is such a great way to spend time, especially if you can find something that you can eat. Is that mustard?
Nearly.
Something mustard. It has a mustardy taste, or I think.
Yeah, it's garlic mustard, or Jack by the hedge, or hedge garlic, or Alliaria petiolata. If it looks like this, there's only really two plants it could be. It could be hedge garlic, or honesty, which is, it's got quite similar leaves, but the leaves are bigger. No problem, they're both edible. But what really tells you you've got hedge garlic is if you crush up the leaf and you have a smell. You get a nice mild smell of garlic. We're going to smell some more garlicky things today. It's a plant I do make use of from a culinary point of view, but not the leaves. Lots of people do like the leaves, but people sometimes find coriander tastes soapy, and people say that's a genetic thing. This plant seems to tap into that as well. It's like the Marmite of the foraging world. As you said, it's a mustard, and when these flowers drop, they'll leave behind some sort of almost legume-like seed pods, and the seeds inside those pods taste just like Dijon mustard. So wow. I let it go to seed. I don't eat the leaves of this plant, although I know plenty of people that do, but I love the seed pods. You can actually, when they're green, just mash them up in a pestle and mortar and make a whole grain mustard on the spot. They are that lovely.
I feel like I've already learnt more about plants than I have in the last 24 years of my life. You can just take a leaf and try and eat.
Absolutely.
Very mild though, not like wild garlic. Oh.
So at the moment you'll be getting a flavour of mild garlic. It might be followed by bitterness, and if you get the third taste, the paracetamol, it's normally about 15 seconds later.
Okay, that's nice. The bitterness is nice. Mustardy.
Any horrible aftertaste?
Not really, no.
There you go. This is a salad leaf for you then.
Wow.
But for me, I don't like my salads to taste of paracetamol, so I tend to leave this one out of my salads.
Yeah, well, I feel privileged. It tastes good to me.
You're one of the lucky ones.
However, foraging isn't without its dangers, and extreme care has to be taken when picking any plant or mushroom from the wild.
the real simple rule is stay away from anything that looks like this, nice and feathery. Although this is edible, some of the most poisonous plants in the country look almost identical to this. But in the carrot family, you've also got plants that have the same kind of overall leaf shape, but you can see this one is much more feathery or pinnate, whereas our hogweed has one leaf on either side. And there's a few other distinctive members of the carrot family like this one that are well worth eating. For beginners, stay away from anything that looks like this, because this is so similar to hemlock. I'm going to be able to show you hemlock today, but yeah, stay away from the feathery members of the carrot family until you really know what you're doing. But hogweed we're going to eat some of today. It's one of my favourite plants to go foraging for, because it grows everywhere. And then look, we're standing in front of a tree that's really interesting as well. So do you know this one, Alex?
Well, this is hawthorn.
It sure is.
I don't know what type of hawthorn though, because there's a couple, isn't there?
Well, most of the ones that you see in the wild in Britain are Crataegus monogyna, our normal wild hawthorn, if you like, or common hawthorn, and that's what this is. Now, the leaves of this in spring, when they're succulent, are a perfect lettuce substitute. But not only that, there's more antioxidants in the leaves of this plant than almost any other leaf you're going to eat. And the berries are edible too. They taste a little bit like apples, and they're very useful for setting things like jams and jellies and fruit leathers, because I think it's pectin that's in them.
We've barely walked 100 meters and I'm just getting information thrown at me. It's quite overwhelming for me. I know that stinging nettles they have a stinger on the on the underside, which is painful.
From a forager's point of view, they are pretty much a superfood. Got rid of the stings. I picked off the top. Be fussy when you're picking nettles. Don't go for all the big open leaves. Go for the nice young fresh tips. And I've got rid of the stings using my tips of my fingers, which are tough enough to deal with the stings. And then if you eat a nettle leaf raw, you're getting vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin C. There's no vitamin D, but we get that from the sunshine whilst we're walking around. There's vitamin K. There's more iron than spinach. Yeah, they're a true superfood, and they grow absolutely everywhere. Any heating of your nettles will destroy the stings. I think you have to heat them up above something like 70 degrees. The stings are utterly destroyed. Have you ever eaten a raw nettle?
I've never eaten a nettle. I've obviously heard that they're edible and they're great for you.
Have a taste. You'll find that that's all not going to sting you.
Oh, I like that. So what did you do? You just take off this tip?
Yep, take the tip, roll it up.
And then you get stung on your tongue. That's good. That's tasty. Wow, first time I've ever eaten stinging nettle.
So if you do get stung though, this is the plant you want. These are little plantain leaves. And they're perfectly edible as well. There's a bigger one there. Now, plantain is an antihistamine, an antiseptic. If you've stung yourself at all, then you get these leaves and you roll them up until you get a bit of juice out of them. Put that on the sting, and that'll get rid of your stings quicker than a dock leaf. This is our lady smock, or cuckoo flower. Again, common names with plants can be a bit confusing, so a lot of your viewers might know it as cuckoo flower. But what you've got is this beautiful flowering stem. At the base of this though, you'll always get these very crest-like basal leaves. So there's the basal leaves of your lady smock, Cardamine pratensis, and we call this wasabi cress. That's our wild Fuji K name for it, because they taste a bit like wasabi. Do you like wasabi?
Oh, I love it.
Have a nibble of those then.
No way! It's wasabi! What? My mind is blown. Who would have thought this thing tastes like wasabi?
So this is a plant called the wood avens. Looks a bit like a strawberry. That's a very young little plant, but those roots, if I get the mud off, have a smell. You should get a spicy smell.
Turmeric? No. Oh, cardamine. Cardamine?
No, close. It begins with a C, so I'll put you out of your misery. Cloves.
Cloves?
Right.
Wow.
Basically, the same chemical that's in cloves is in these roots.
Really?
Anything you use cloves for, you can use these roots for. But I'll get a whole plant, just clean off the mud off the roots and pop the plant into the mulled wine pot while it's mulling. It looks all twee and foragey, and then you just take the plant out at the end. Anyone with a garden in the UK has this plant in their garden.
I'm going to look when I go back home, yeah.
Guarantee it.
So how do you go about identifying something that you found? Marlo explained to me that some species have key identifying features. For example, the wood avens smells of cloves, which means you can be certain of what it is. However, other species might have multiple features that you need to put together to be sure that you've got the correct species. Before you even get out foraging though, it's probably best to flick through a book and get an idea of some of the things that you can look for whilst out walking. Cool, shall we keep walking or shall we stay here for the next
few hours? But there's some more interesting things a bit further along, I think. Here's a very interesting one. All around here.
Oh, this is what we put in the soup?
Yeah, absolutely. This is our three-cornered leek. So named because if you look at the flower stem, it's triangular.
Oh yeah.
Now it does look like our snowdrops and our snowbells. The snowdrop leaves are incredibly similar, but like all garlics, if you crush those up and have a smell, you should get that nice, lovely smell of garlic. This here is, if you like garlic anyway, an extremely tasty addition to the forager's bag.
In the past, when I've gone foraging, I've either been walking without and not been prepared, so I've just put the mushrooms like in my pocket. And if I am prepared, I have a basket. Okay. I see you've got a cleverer method of carrying your foraging goods around.
These are our own little forager's bag designs. So we've got a mushroom one and a beech leaf one, and basically it goes on your belt and it's just there, stays well out of your way. If the basket's empty, it's just a pain in the neck to hold on to it. So these belt bags work. And then the only other tool I ever bring out is our little keyring Leatherman, which has scissors on it and that tiny little knife. And I have never found a mushroom that tiny little blade can't deal with, and it's also legal. It's of a legal size. I think anything that locks or it's over 3 inches is illegal, so a lot of the foragers' knives that you see people carrying are actually illegal to carry in public. That does the job for anything I need to cut, and this will hold anything I need to take home. So that's my forager's kit.
And I was just about to learn about a species which you definitely don't want to take home.
There's a lot of toxic things grow on riverside. So giant hogweed, for example, is a plant that likes riversides. But this here is potentially the most poisonous plant in the whole northern hemisphere of the planet, as I've said. And this is a good reason to take care when you're foraging, because if you look at those leaves, it looks a lot like flat leaf parsley.
Looks like parsley.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's also quite commonly mistaken for wild celery. Have a smell of that, Alex.
Just smelling it won't do anything.
No, I hope not.
Oh, it smells amazing.
So poisonous that I think there's probably enough in my hand to kill one of us at least if we were to mistakenly eat it. But this is so common. If you think you found wild celery, you've probably found this. If you think you found flatleaf parsley in the wild in the UK, it's probably this.
Marlo told me how it's the origin of the term sardonic grin. This plant was used for executions and affects the muscles of the victim's face.
But what they used to do in Sardinia is they'd hang up all their criminals that they'd executed on the port walls and city gates, and so, you know, to scare off any other criminals. But all these criminals staring at you off the port walls had this big cheesy grin on their face.
Wow, that's
all the corpses,
sinister,
rather.
That's dark.
That's where the term sardonic grin comes from.
It's scary. I can understand why people are afraid to pick food from the wild. Hearing about foods like what we've just seen, which can potentially kill you with just a small amount.
Absolutely.
You have got to be so careful. These are my favourite. Wow.
No fruit on them just yet, but if you know what a strawberry looks like, they look the same in the wild, just a little bit thinner. This is our common sorrel. So if you've got this kind of arrowhead-like leaf with pointed tails like that, in the UK it's going to be common sorrel, unless it's growing on a trailing stem, in which case it's potentially meadow bindweed. A nibble of meadow bindweed's not going to hurt you, but sorrel has a lovely flavour. Have you tried this one?
No, I haven't. No.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you like lemons?
Yeah, I love lemons. I'm just discovering stuff which I wish I discovered years ago.
This grows everywhere. This is in almost every bit of
Common
grassland.
sorrel, lemons, taste of lemons.
So that goes in our wild garlic pestos instead of lemon juice.
That's amazing.
No dangerous lookalikes. There's a plant called Lords and Ladies, which I'll show you. It does have tails, but those tails are rounded. As long as you rule out Lords and Ladies, and it's got pointy tails, have a nibble. If it doesn't taste of lemon, you're not going to hurt yourself. Just make sure you find the ones that taste of lemon.
Wild mushrooms are normally associated with autumn, but today we were going to look for a few different species that you can actually find in the spring. But firstly, what exactly are mushrooms? They are just the fruiting body of a fungus. The fungus is mostly underground, and the mushroom only pops up for a short amount of time when the conditions are right. Some fungi are mycorrhizal, meaning that there is a symbiotic relationship between the plants and the fungi. Basically, they help each other. There's also parasitic fungi that live off a plant, and also saprophytic fungi that decay organic materials.
Oh,
Nearly had pheasant for dinner.
and look down around.
Oh yeah!
Around there.
Oh yeah! Mushrooms! Mushroom spotting from the car.
St George's mushrooms are a very famous spring edible in the UK. We don't get too many mushrooms in spring, so these ones are ones that every forager goes after. There's one there, looks like it's in quite good condition, and there's more just there. They grow in rings in grassland. That one's got mouldy. You don't want to eat mouldy mushrooms, so I think that's probably the best example there. We'll have a look at him. First of all, they're called the St George's mushroom because they grow near to St George's Day, April the 23rd. So they come up around the beginning of April and they'll last through most of May if it's nice and wet. If it dries out, these mushrooms don't like it. So that's your first thing. They're a spring mushroom. You don't find these in autumn. The second thing is they're normally in rings in grassland where you'll see the grass is a bit longer and healthier. That's because the mushrooms are helping to feed the grass and make it bigger and stronger. That's what they do for any of the things that they're mycorrhizally attached to. Now they're white all over, but one of their physical characteristics is that they are particularly fleshy. So look how stout and fleshy that stem is and how fleshy the cap is. So the gills only take up a small amount of vertical space. Lovely, chunky, meaty mushroom. And this is not as big as they get. They get maybe 3 or 4 times as big as this. But the last thing, after you've got those characteristics, white all over, rings in grassland, near to St George's Day, and stout and fleshy, not a hollow-stemmed, thin-stemmed mushroom, is that they have a very distinctive smell. So have a smell, and what people say is that they smell sawdusty.
Oh, that smells amazing actually, I love that.
It's a very distinctive smell, but what they're really good for is like creamy mushroom sauces and things like curries and stir fries and things like that, where you want a more intense mushroomy flavour. So don't just fry them up, be a bit more inventive with your St George's mushrooms.
There's so many. And do these need to be cooked?
Yeah, just as a rule of thumb, cook all your wild mushrooms. There are some that you have to cook because otherwise they're going to be toxic. And the truth is, you don't know what's been here before you. They're all at ground level. So cook your wild mushrooms just to be safe. We've got enough of these. We're going to hopefully find some other mushrooms.
You can't stop looking.
It does get like that. So far, garlic, mushrooms and sorrel. Let's see what else we can add.
You can't beat it. Driving along beautiful country roads. I think the scenery around here is amazing, and finding mushrooms as well. Great way to spend the day.
These are our sulphur tufts. Got sort of olivaceous green iridescence to the gills, and they're normally bright yellow, hence the sulphur name, but these have faded a bit in the sun. These are rotting some wood that's underground, so they're a saprophyte. Ah!
Oh, what's that?
That is what we're after.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Let's have a look. Ah yes, exactly what we're after. Not the slugs. or the wood lice. But what we've got here is a poplar field cap, a piopino or a velvet piopino. Now these are, for me, tastier than the St George's mushrooms, and they're common and they have a very long fruiting period, so they'll fruit in spring, and I even found some here in October or maybe even later last year. So, you know, when the conditions are right, they'll fruit a few times. And got the ring on the stem there, off-white gills. They're not growing from an egg sac. These have got a lovely nutty side to the flavour. I really, really do like these mushrooms. So there's, I think, a few more just around the back there. Let's pick these two, leave that little baby, and watch where you tread, because they could well be hiding. Let's have a look. There we go. Beautiful poplar field caps, and these are specific to poplar trees. So that's what you want to look for. Look for your poplar trees and you might find your poplar field caps.
It's been a good morning's foraging. Not that I've done much. I've just been pointing a camera in your face, but thanks to Marlowe's expertise, we've got a nice selection of food to eat. Over the next couple of hours, Marlowe continued to show me a load more plants. We picked some chickweed, which I learned has an interesting key identifying feature of a mohican of hairs along the plant stem. We also found wood sorrel, which has heart-shaped leaves and tastes like apple peel. Time for some lunch. Wow, that's amazing. That's good.
Quite nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't have to be a good chef when you've got good ingredients.
That was a delicious soup, Marlowe, thank you. Are we gonna keep looking for some more mushrooms?
Oh!
There's, is that one?
Wow! That's exactly what we're looking for. This is one that you don't find very often, so it's a real treat. The Verpa conica, or the Thimble Morel, or the early morel is another one of its names, because it comes up normally a little bit before the other morels do in early April. Now we found one, hopefully with your eyes, because I'm not so great at spotting these ones, Alex, we can find a few more.
Is that good condition?
Yeah, that's good enough. There's no mould on it. So this is where there's a mushroom underground feeding that grass, or rotting different substrates underground that the grass likes to eat. So you can see these rings, you can actually see them on Google Earth. If you're going to a park, then you can have a look at it on Google Earth beforehand, and you might see a ring like this. If so, that's where a mushroom is growing. It's not in fruit at the moment, so we don't know what this mushroom is, but I know it's there. It just means that I'll walk past this spot every time I come here until I find out what the mushroom is that's growing in the ring there. Anyway, nothing there at the moment. Let's pick some more morels.
Here you go.
Well done. That's actually the nicest one that we've found so far. If you remember, on the common sorrel, I was showing you the points that point downwards. On sheep's sorrel, they tend to point out a bit more horizontally, like a halberd, which is an old medieval weapon. Have a munch of those. That's sheep's sorrel, Rumex acetosa.
Oh my goodness.
Not quite as sour as the common sorrel.
It's so cool how there's these plants which taste amazing. Just here.
You know, nothing I've shown you today is in any way rare or unusual. They're the plants that you do see every day if you're out walking around.
Look at that. This is a whole board full of food that we found today. We've got mushrooms, leaves, flowers. We're gonna cook it up. We're gonna turn it into something edible and tasty.
We're going to do a nice stir fry, which starts with everything cooking up. Lots of garlic in there. That's enough. Good pouring.
I'm getting dinner cooked up for me by Marlowe and Bonnie.
This one's a bit thicker. You have to go glob, glob, glob. Glob. Can you do it?
Glob, glob, glob.
Okay, mix it all together for me. And a little bit of greenery on top. There you go.
Lovely, thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Look at this. food that we found today, and that's our reward. If you want to learn more about foraging, then I'll leave links in the description of this video to Marlowe's website and YouTube channel. Also, this is the book that I've been using for the past few months. It's the Wild Food UK Foraging Pocket Guide, and it includes information about all the species that you're likely to find in the UK. Marlowe very kindly donated 3 of his books to give away to the people watching this video. So if you're in the UK and you want to have a chance of having one of these, head over to my Instagram, send me a direct message, let me know that you're in the UK and you want to learn more about foraging, and I'll pick a few people to send these to. Thanks for watching the video, I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you soon for another one.